In his last years in Rochester, Rogers wrote his first book, Clinical Treatment of the Problem Child. It described the range of methods for working with young people, from institutional and foster home placement to modifying their school program and using clubs, groups, and camps, to treatment interviews using education, persuasion, and release, to deeper therapies. On the strength of this book and his part-time teaching experience at the University of Rochester, he was offered and accepted a full professorship at Ohio State University. At Ohio, Rogers' students were not satisfied with his simply reviewing all the methods for helping children or counseling adults. They wanted to know what he believed was effective. And so Rogers began to articulate his own views on counseling and psychotherapy, which resulted in a second book of that same title in 1942. It was a book that challenged the field of psychotherapy to its core, and as most introductory counseling textbooks state, virtually founded the field of professional counseling. How could one book have such a profound influence? First, while Rogers was not the first author to use the term client for the recipient of therapy, with this book, Rogers popularized it. More than a semantic distinction, the word connotes a departure from the medical model of illness, emphasizing that a person seeking help should not be treated as a dependent patient, but as a responsible client, and that those in psychological distress were not necessarily sick, therefore requiring treatment by medical specialists. Rather, all people could be helped by the growth-producing process of counseling, and professionals from many fields could be trained to provide this help. Thus, counselors, social workers, clergy, medical workers, youth and family workers, and other helping professionals could employ counseling methods. Second, Rogers introduced his non-directive method. He credited others with working in the same direction, but his own statement of the position was the most extreme, and what he called the newer direction in therapy became identified with him. His method was based on a core hypothesis about human growth and personality change, which he summarized a few years later. This hypothesis is that the client has within himself the capacity, latent if not evident, to understand those aspects of his life and of himself which are causing him pain, and the capacity and the tendency to reorganize himself and his relationship to life in the direction of self-actualization and maturity, in such a way as to bring a greater degree of internal comfort. The function of the therapist is to create such a psychological atmosphere as will permit this capacity and this strength to become effective rather than latent or potential.